Well, welcome everyone to our first, I want to call this Co-op BIPOC in-course admissions panel. It's more about just, connecting with students and ensuring that you have all the information required to be successful if you decide to enter into co-op. So what we'll do to get started is I want to chat a little bit to the panelists, having them share their experiences. And then, of course, if anyone in the audience has any questions, feel free to either raise your hand or type them in the chat. So I will like to introduce the panel, starting off with, I guess I'll go with how I see you on my screen. So the first student on my screen here is Rahul Singh. And Rahul Singh is a third-year Bachelor of Commerce student who has completed all of his work terms with RBC. So he has some great experience to share doing multiple work terms with the same employer. And then we have Chelsea. Chelsea, can you help me pronounce your last name? I don't want to screw it up. So Chelsea, go ahead, pronounce your last name for me, please.
It's Ohiolei Ehimiaghe.
Okay, I would have totally got that wrong. So thank you, Chelsea, for sharing that for me. So Chelsea is actually a recent graduate, Bachelor of Engineering program, and she's done work terms with Toyota Motor Manufacturing, IPEX Management Inc, University of Guelph, the Office of the Provost, and she's currently working full-time at SNC Lavalin as a systems engineer designer. So she is proof that co-op actually works. So welcome, Chelsea, to the panel. Then next up, we have Lily Morrison. She's a third-year Bachelor of Arts student, completed work terms with the University of Guelph, Child Care and Learning Center, Open Learning and Educational Support, also at U of G, and of course, Canada Border Services Agency. So Lily also has a variety of experiences to share with the panel as well. And then next up, we have Ushba. Ushba Khalid is a Bachelor of Commerce student. She's completed her work terms with Kenna and U of G, Computing and Communication Services. And Ushba and I connected a while back for the co-op social events we've done in previous semesters. So good to see you again here, Ushba. And then, of course, last but not least for our panel, we have Malcolm Wright, Bachelor of Computing, and he's completed work terms with Microsoft Corporation and Tulip Retail. So welcome and thank you so much to all of our panelists. Of course, on screen today, we have my colleagues, Anjali Mayrota, and I hope I said your last name correctly. She is the EDI Employer Engagement Specialist. So she'll chat a little bit about her role later. And then, of course, we have Suzanne Haggerty, whose role is Co-op 1100 instructor. And all of you on the panel have gone through Co-op 1100, and we'll chat about that first. So how I want to run the panel, I'll kind of ask questions as a moderator. I will direct them to specific panelists. Every panelist will have an opportunity to speak and share their experiences. And then from there, towards the second half of our session, we'll chat about the co-op in-course admissions process. And then Anjali will share some information about her role and the support she provides specifically to BIPOC and vulnerable and diverse students. All right, does this sound good? Yes, okay, awesome. So welcome everyone, thank you so much for coming. And I guess I wanna get started, I wanna get right into it with the first question for the panelists. So I'll go in reverse order. Malcolm will be up first with the first question. So I want you all to, if you can remember your experience with taking the Co-op 1100 course, a crucial course, I think, in the success of securing a work term. So Malcolm, what was your experience like in Co-op 1100?
To start, my experience with Co-op 1100 was I took it actually during the summer after my first year, because that was starting to get offered then. And I decided to help the future workload in the fall. And because I took it in the summer, it kind of allowed me to get it out of the way and get all my resume stuff all in order so that when I did in fact start applying for internships and co-ops, that stuff was already done. And it was also good to get extra practice, I know I was checking out the course link again to refresh my memory. There's a video interview assignment, which I actually found helpful because that actually played a role in my interviews that I did for not only my first work term, but the work term I'm in right now.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for that, Malcolm. So I should kind of backtrack a little bit. So for students that are not in co-op currently, Co-op 1100 is the prep course that you take before you actually begin the job search process. Co-op 1100 kind of supports students with resume writing, interview skills, job search, all the things you need to be successful and ready to search for a work term. So thanks for that answer, Malcolm. So Ushba, you're up next. Can you talk about your experience with Co-op 1100?
Yeah, so I did my Co-op 1100 course as a part of my first semester of my second year. So I was taking a full course load. And it was an extra course, of course, with the academics part of it, but I found it really helpful. Like Malcolm had mentioned, there was a video interview process, and the following semester, when I was giving out applications and applying to places, I did get an interview that was a video interview. So I was able to link those two experiences together, and that was really helpful. Otherwise, it would have felt like going into it with no experience at all would have been very daunting.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And obviously, video interviews are kind of fairly new to everyone. And I feel like that's kind of the direction we're going with regards to job searching. So that assignment, I'm sure, is super helpful to prepare students for that. So Lily, can you share your experience with Co-op 1100, please?
Sorry, it just took me a second to unmute myself. I, like Ushba, had to take Co-op 1100 in the second semester of my first year. So I'm in a Bachelor of Arts for Psychology, and there are opportunities present within the College of Social and Applied Human Sciences to do co-op positions, which I feel like a lot of people don't know about to begin with. And so for those who are within those programs, I do think that it's quite beneficial, although some people might not see the direct relation. I do find that I've had really good experiences with co-op, but returning to Co-op 1100, like I said, I had to take it with a full course load and within my first year as well. So I was fairly new just to university life as it is, that having to take more than a full course load within my first year was a bit daunting at first, but I was very grateful that a lot of people who I had met either through residence or the classes that I was in were also in co-op. So I wasn't alone in the fact of having the same course load as other people. So that did make me feel a bit better. And I would just say the whole layout of the course itself is very much set up to put you in a successful path, and that's the whole point of it, or at least what I gathered when I took it. Like everyone said, there's the video interview process. You also go through your resume and how to write a cover letter, and all of these are obviously very important when you're applying to jobs, not just co-op positions, but even in the future, having those tool sets for even after you graduate when you go to apply, knowing how to write an effective cover letter. Previous to taking Co-op 1100, didn't really know how to write a cover letter. And so I definitely feel well more equipped now going even into the future with all of those things. So I really would say, although it's an extra course load, you do get a lot out of it, not even just within your 4 years or however long your degree is at the university. It's beneficial, at least how I see it, going forward for the rest of my life. Whenever I want to apply to a job, I have the tool set now to kind of know what I need to do to set myself up for success.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Lily. I couldn't have said it any better. Co-op 1100 and these prep courses really do gear you not just for co-op, but for things above and beyond that. So thanks for that, Lily. Next up, we have Chelsea. So do you recall your experience from Co-op 1100, Chelsea?
Yes, I do. That's because it was a very interesting experience. So I took Co-op 1100 alongside 6 other engineering courses. So it was like an extreme workload I had that semester. And I kind of went into the course thinking like, okay, it's just it's one of those courses that you just fly through. They just tell you to make a resume. That's what I thought. And then after a couple of weeks, I'm like, okay, this course is very thorough. And then they ask you to make a resume, and then you get a grade, and it's like 50. I'm like, whoa, what? Like why am I getting a 50? It's just a resume. And then the feedback was quite shocking to me because that's where the bulk of the learning came from for me. And I applied the feedback, and I just, I actually decided to take the course more seriously because from the looks of things, I'm like, this course is very important. And I did that, and all through the course, the cover letter, the interview, and everything. At the moment, it didn't feel quite useful because I hadn't started applying for jobs. But then I went into the first work search, and I was getting interviews from companies like Toyota, and I'm like, I barely had any experience, but just because of how good my resume was, he ended up like attracting all these like companies, and that's when it's one of those things where in the moment you might not feel like, we are just like, what is this course? I just have to pass this course. It's stressful, whatever. But at the end, it's until today, even to land my full-time job, it's the same resume. I have not changed my resume style, nothing. I just add to it. And that's what that course was for me, was a life changer.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that, Chelsea. And of course, last but not least, Raul, can you share your memory of your experience with Co-op 1100, please?
For sure. So yeah, like Ushba and Lily, I was also taking the Co-op 1100 course with full course load, and like Chelsea as well. And that was in second year, first semester, so a long time ago. However, I guess to kind of sum it all up, it's pretty much just a how to get hired boot camp, pretty much. So the course went from making resumes to providing those mock interviews, as some of the other panelists had mentioned. And I guess my biggest key takeaway from the course that really came in handy in my upper year interviews was kind of how to shift away from talking about what you did and more about kind of what you achieved. So in most of, I guess, my upper year interviews, I was kind of formulating my answers based off of what I learned in the Co-op 1100 course with like the STAR techniques, which was like a big key takeaway for me. And overall, I think given my, I guess, co-op success, I definitely attribute that a lot to Co-op 1100 and what I learned there.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that, Raul. I'm going to stay with you for the next question, Raul. So the next question is, can you share your job search process? What did you do to get a job? Are there any tips you'd like to share with other students potentially thinking about getting into co-op?
Of course. So yeah, I guess the co-op portal will open up for students, I guess, the semester before, so they can start applying for jobs then. I guess me and everybody else kind of new to co-op just start blindly applying for jobs. I think there's a better approach than just doing that. Like, of course, apply to as many jobs as you can, especially being your first co-op. You can't be too picky. But like a couple of you have taken like the initiative today to come to events like this. There's lots of companies having events as well. And as you can imagine, being a recruiter and picking resumes out of a pile of 1,000, I might just pick yours because I knew your name or I knew you from elsewhere. So that's definitely a better approach to the co-op application process. And for me, I guess to get a job, that's kind of what I had to do. I made it aware that I wanted to work at a bank very early on. And unfortunately for my first co-op, I guess COVID hit, so I wasn't able to get one. So obviously for you as well, don't be worried if you don't get a co-op your first time around. There's always other opportunities. But I made it aware, like I said, that I wanted to work at a bank. Ian, my co-op advisor, was able to make a couple connections. And a couple interviews later, I was able to get a job at RBC, which was great. So I guess the key takeaway is don't be picky, don't be shy, and don't worry if you don't get a co-op first time around. There's always other opportunities. Just continue to work on yourself, and employers will see that.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Raul. So Lily, you're up next. Any tips and suggestions for the job search process?
I would say, like, just to reiterate kind of what Raul had just said, that I feel like in my at least first co-op term that I was a little bit, not crazy, but I definitely applied to more jobs than those that I was actually interested in, which on one hand, you shouldn't limit yourself. So if you find that it might not be applicable to you, you might find afterwards that you end up liking it more than you thought you would. So don't definitely put yourself inside of a box, definitely in terms just relating within my degree within psychology. In terms of the Experiential Guelph website that you use, like the portal that you use to apply for jobs, if you want to do it that way, you also can do it on your own using external websites from the university, which I did find during COVID I also had to do as well, because you need to get a little bit more resourceful in terms of employers that were available to hire students during COVID. And not all of that, I know we're still through COVID, is through you as a student. So don't be discouraged if there's not as many job opportunities out there for you. Some of those things are out of your hands, so don't take it personally if there aren't as many interview opportunities or you're applying to many jobs and you only get 1 or 2 interviews. I know for one of my work terms this would be for fall 2020 that I was applying for. Over the summer, I applied to probably over 60 positions and maybe heard back from 5 to 10. So there's a large gap there that I didn't hear back from. Whether or not I got an interview or not, just no correspondence at all. And I definitely say you shouldn't take that personally. And just try your best, like just reevaluate, take a minute and think about what it is that you're kind of looking for, and just make sure that you're not discouraging yourself. Like Raul said, if you don't get a position, there's other opportunities, so don't stress yourself out. And also please do use your co-op advisor and coordinator. Mine is lovely. I'm sure all the other panelists would say the same thing, that they're very helpful. So if you are feeling a little bit discouraged, maybe organize a meeting with them, and they're definitely very helpful. And throughout the pandemic, the university itself as an organization held a lot of positions for students in co-op or experiential learning. And that's what I actually ended up securing over that fall 2020 position. It was completely remote, which was interesting and kind of nice, kind of having that experience, knowing whether or not I would like remote work or not. So like I said earlier, don't limit yourself if you think, oh, I really want to work in person. If it's something that you're open to, trying a new experience is always good, because now I have the experience of doing a fully remote position where I never met any of my coworkers in person. It was always over Teams. And so I would just say, just try your best and don't discourage yourself. Like there will be opportunities for you, and just have an open mind, because you might find that you'll like something more than you thought you would when you first applied. And just be open to any opportunity that goes your way, even if it's not something you're totally interested in. Even just having the experience of going to an interview and doing another interview under your belt, I do find beneficial as well, because your first couple interviews can be really scary, that once you do one more, the next one's not as scary as the one before.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Lily. So Malcolm, you're up next.
For tips on the job search period, I would say kind of like what Lily was saying. Don't like artificially limit yourself on, where you think you could work at. Don't be afraid to apply to positions that, might not match what you perceive to have, like skill-wise, but like apply to not just experience qualif, but like utilize and take advantage of external jobs too, like LinkedIn. There's a lot of resources online. You can like find them on Google. And I would say also to broaden your location of like where you'd want to work. Don't like, have an open mind with that. Because that just opens up yourself with more opportunities, I guess.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree anymore. Obviously, having more locations available to you means more opportunities. So thanks for that, Malcolm. Chelsea, if you can share with us your job search process.
Okay, so my first work term, I think I applied to maybe 60 jobs, and I had like 12 interviews. But at the end of it was like April, and the work term was supposed to start in May. I hadn't got a job, so I was like, what is going on? And then, as Lily mentioned, you have to utilize your co-op advisors, because they're like, mine was like a lifesaver. And I went to her and I spoke to her. I'm like, I don't feel like this is not okay. I've had these many interviews and no jobs. And she told me something that I held on to till today, and that was reach out to these people you interviewed with. So I had interviewed with Toyota, I had interviewed with Honda, I believe, and some other like companies I really wanted to work for. So I reached out to them and I'm like, can I know the reason why I wasn't selected for this position? And then they told me, okay, your lack of experience in this field, if you can do this to gain this level of experience, we could consider you. So I held on to that, and I took that semester off for co-op, but I actually went to work for Denso Manufacturing, and they work with Toyota and Honda. So I'm like, if I work with Denso, even if it's not a co-op position, still putting me in that manufacturing and automotive industry is still going to give me some sort of exposure. And I went to work at Denso, and I told Toyota, I reached back out to them during the term at Denso. And I told them that that's where I was working now and this is what I'm doing. And they offered me a 8-month work term even before the end of the summer. So it's like, even if you don't, get a job, or even if you don't, co-op is beyond just getting jobs. For me, it's also building connections and enlarging your network. So even if you don't get a job, whatever interview you go to, try to like ask, okay, can I connect with you on LinkedIn? Can I get your email? That's what helped me all through my work terms. And after I worked at Toyota, I pretty much like held on to that strategy, and every work term came easy. I barely had to apply before getting like work terms. So don't be discouraged, reach out and talk to your advisors. They're there to help you.
Thank you for that, Chelsea. The power of networking. I always call it that. You never know networking is working until it works, until you actually have those opportunities. So that's a great message. Thanks, Chelsea. Ushba, last but not least, share with us your job search experience and any tips for the audience.
My job search experience was definitely an interesting one. It was right before the pandemic hit. I had a job interview with Kenna in January, and as far as I knew, and as far as anybody knew, the positions were going to be in person. And then as soon as the pandemic hit, I got an email that said, the position is going to. So when that happened, I remembered how important it was to be flexible in the positions that you're given, and that was something that we learned in Co-op 1100 as well. Just that not everything is essentially going to go as planned. And another thing I would say, which has been spoken about already, is to not be discouraged. 60 applications is a lot of work, a lot of cover letters, a lot of resumes, a lot of no's that you will receive. But the point is to just keep going and keep trying. And some people I know got their position on the last day, right before their work term started. Anything can happen. Don't be discouraged. Make sure to put your mental health first. And if you ever need any help, co-op advisors are there for you to help you look over your resume, your cover letter, reach out to people that they might even know. So there's a lot of support. You're not in this alone.
Thanks for that, Ushba. Very, very good points for sure. So the next question I want to move on to is your experience on your work term. So I know some of you work with the same employer, some of you work with a variety of employers. Just share, I guess, your experiences on your work term. And if you can also share, how have you grown from your first work term to where you are today? I know there's some major growth going on here from the stories you've shared. So I guess we'll start with Lily this time around. Lily, go ahead, please.
So I would classify myself as one of the students. So for all three I've completed within my program, I was able to have 3 co-op terms. I've done all 3 of them now, and all 3 of them were with different employers. So for some people, depending on what your goals are, you might decide that you want to work with one employer and kind of further yourself within either that company, organization, or you have a goal in mind. For me, at least, I just wanted more experience. And if there was something that was related to kind of my interests or field of study, that's the sort of thing that I went into. So 2 of my positions were through the university. And so that whole process was, I would say, fairly seamless in the sense that the university is well aware of the co-op program and kind of how it functions. So in terms of your payment, that's all through the university and everything like that. So if you decide that you have desires within the university that you can kind of collaborate within your interests. So I myself self-identify as Indigenous. I'm Ojibwe from Rainy Rivers First Nations in Emo, Ontario, which is up north. And my second co-op work term, which was in the fall of 2020, which I also secured only a couple weeks before the term started, was with the University of Guelph through the Open Learning team. And I was working as Indigenous assistant, helping them create on CourseLink, and the project still hasn't been completed yet. It was a collaborative effort to work towards having an Indigenous pedagogy website for either instructors to use or students to use if they wanted to gain more knowledge on Indigenous knowledges and ways of life. And previous to that, work term experience, I didn't have as much of a connection to my culture as I definitely do now through that experience, as I kind of really got to get my hands into different types of literature and getting to speak with Indigenous knowledge keepers. So there definitely are opportunities on campus, not just if you are looking for something that's more culturally specific to you, but just in general for your interests. You might be surprised knowing all of the different services on campus that they have that you can kind of collaborate within your interests. So I would definitely say if that's of interest to you, you could either talk to your co-op advisor, or they're definitely present with on the Experience Guelph website, and to not discourage yourself, even if it's not within the realm of your degree, which in my case is psychology, to not discourage yourself from applying from things like that, because you definitely still get a plethora of experience and just take home knowledge that you get from something like that. So I definitely say, like I was saying earlier, not to limit yourself and just kind of put yourself out there for anything, because before my co-op work terms, I definitely wouldn't have thought that that'd be one that I would do, but I definitely think it's going to be one of the most rewarding once the project is done and I kind of get to see it once everything's completed. So co-op students worked on it before me, and co-op students are still currently working on it. So it's quite interesting also to see that a bunch of different co-op students kind of get to work on something together, even though it wasn't at the same time. And so I'd say if that's your desire, to kind of put yourself in a bunch of different boxes and utilize co-op and kind of for your benefit. And you can obviously, like I did, have different positions for every placement that you have, but that'd be more, I guess, geared towards what your goals are and what you kind of want to get out of co-op. But I do find that having all those different experiences, not even just getting to put them on my resume, but even more so just having all of that knowledge that I now have, I find is really going to help me going forward.
Thanks so much, Lily. It sounds like you had some great experiences for your co-op work term. That's awesome. So let's go with Raul next. Raul, can you share with us your experiences on your work terms?
For sure. So I guess after securing that position, I got to start work a little bit early. So I guess I had 3 months of summer, and then I got to work like a 5-month term rather than a 4-month term with RBC. And I guess going to an organization, I'm sure all the other panelists could agree, I guess it's a really big step from just like your typical retail job that you may have had earlier, working in an actual large organization. So for the first 4 or 5 months of just kind of figuring out how things work, I was lucky to get a return offer, and that's kind of where things started to escalate very quickly. I got to be involved on a lot more projects, a lot more bigger projects, earned trust from my manager. You'd be surprised, you'll get a lot of things by earning people's trust. And I guess my biggest takeaway and the biggest learning I had on my co-op experience was just my confidence in talking to people who may seem like they're intimidating in intimidating positions. So your boss or your boss's boss or other colleagues who have been there for a long time. Sometimes it can be intimidating, and just being in that place made me feel much more comfortable. I guess speaking from the perspective of working at an organization, I guess getting back into the same role or working in the same organization, you'll have the opportunity to, you'll be stamped as a returned name or a returned person. So, you have that kind of hovering above your head. So everybody might know who you are. Networking becomes much easier. And that's ultimately how I was able to secure my final position that I'll be starting in January. Just having, being someone known and being able to come into another position. So, I guess lots of learning to be done on co-op. And I definitely encourage everybody to put yourself out there, and you never know what could happen.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Raul. Ushba, if you can share with us your experience on your work terms.
Yeah, so my work terms were a little bit unusual. I had 4 work terms back to back to back to back. Yeah, I decided to kind of switch a few of my schedule calendar around a little bit so I could have it that way, so I could experience the COVID changes through the organizations. And one of the things that I really took away from my co-op work terms was that as much as I found things that I did enjoy doing, I also found things that I might not really enjoy doing. And I found that to be a very valuable experience because now I kind of know myself a little bit more in terms of the work that I want to do in the future. So I would say from the first work term, like Raul said, there's a lot of just wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, oh, this is a new experience for me. I hope this goes well. But as my work terms progressed, I felt a lot more confident in myself, knowing that I would be able to secure work terms and continue.
Uh-oh, did we lose Ushba? Okay, we'll come back to Ushba. She's frozen for a bit now. Oh, okay, she'll come back. So Chelsea, if you can share with us your experiences on your work term.
When I went into co-op, I sort of like decided to create a strategy for myself going through all the work terms. So I was in mechanical engineering, and I knew that there were different aspects to it. So I'm like, I'm going to use co-op as an opportunity to try each, like, I was only interested in two, but I sort of like planned to do that. I'm like, I'm going to use co-op to see manufacturing and go into manufacturing and see if I like it. And then the other work terms, go into energy and see if I like it. So that when I graduate, I do have a better understanding of what exactly I want to do. So that's kind of the way I planned it, although COVID changed things a bit. I had my first work term at Toyota, which was great. It was a great start to everything. And then after that, I got a co-op with Bruce Power, which was energy, which is exactly like how I planned it. But then unfortunately, it got canceled because of COVID. So I had to work with the University of Guelph with the instruction and technical support role. And then my last work term was with IPEX Management. It's a pipe manufacturer in Ontario. So I sort of like, even though I wasn't able to like achieve what I really wanted, which was to try both industries, which was manufacturing and energy, I decided to still somewhat stay involved with energy. So considering the fact that Bruce Power had gave me the offer, made me feel like they wanted me to work for them. So I kept in touch with them. I asked if I could get connected to a few engineers just to stay in touch with everything they're doing in the industry, just to sort of like have understanding of where things are progressing, how COVID is affecting it, just so I'm not like totally excluded. And that sort of helped me because when I was done school, I had Toyota gave me an offer to come back, and then I got my current job, and I already knew like, okay, I've not exactly tasted energy, but I kind of knew like this is exactly where I want to be compared to manufacturing. So it kind of helped me like put my life in order, and I have no regrets. I'm very thankful for co-op actually to be able to, if you have that opportunity, I would advise like it's 4 or 5 work terms, just explore as many places as you can if you're in a diverse program like mechanical engineering. There's no harm if you like split it up 4 months in each different company and build connections. And like Rahul said, you never know how far that takes you. Like I got a full-time offer from Toyota before graduating, and I didn't think a company like Toyota would want me. And that obviously like helped my confidence. It's made me feel like I'm actually, capable of being a good engineering student, and it made me also realize that this is exactly what I want to do in the long term.
Thanks for that, Chelsea. Great experiences, great stories. Getting a full-time job offer before graduating university is amazing. So congrats to you on all the things that you've done. Ushba, if you wanted to continue sharing your experiences with us.
Yeah, sorry about that. So with my work term with the University of Guelph, I had an opportunity to get a lot more independence in the things that I wanted to do. My role was called the digital event student, and I really dug into that and really leaned in because that was something I was really interested in. And Claudia, thank you so much for being part of those events. We ran co-op events from January to now, and they're still continuing. So like Lily said, that was a project that I worked on when I was a co-op student, and now other co-op students are continuing it after me. So just knowing that, I guess you could say there's a little bit of a legacy there of co-op students helping co-op students, especially during a time where not a lot of people could really see each other. Most people were working from home. That getting that responsibility from my manager really boosted my confidence in just myself and my abilities, whereas I would sometimes be the one who is in the back of meetings, maybe not saying anything, but now knowing that he had that confidence in me going forward, I have that confidence in myself as well. So, you know, the co-op system and the co-op program, the co-ops that you go into are what you make of it. So if you want to make the most of it, take initiative and really try to see where you can kind of dip your toes in a little bit in different projects that you might not have known before, because managers, they recognize that. They recognize that you want to go above and beyond, and they'll remember that for the future if you do want to go back to them after graduation.
Thanks for that, Ushba. All right, so last but not least, sharing their co-op experiences with us is Malcolm. So tell us about your co-op experiences.
So my first work term was this past summer. I had a great opportunity to work at Microsoft, which I would have never thought of, like, would have been possible. In that experience, I was able to get a return offer for the next summer, but it kind of gave me the confidence to say, like, you know, you don't want to doubt yourself. You don't want to put that limit on yourself. I almost didn't apply for that position. And then the second work term I'm doing right now is at Tulip Retail as a software developer. What I will say, though, is that kind of similar to what Chelsea was saying about mechanical engineering, my field also has a few different roles. So I had that opportunity to try the PM role and the software engineer role this past summer. And that's a huge benefit of co-op, in my opinion. I think, you know, being able to have 4 months and being able to test the waters at different companies, different roles you may or may not like, before, you know, you start your whole career is a huge plus, because, you know, like I said, you don't really have a huge commitment to one company, and you can find out what you like before you graduate. And lastly, it could also provide you a benefit of potentially getting a full-time offer at before you graduate, like Chelsea. So that's a really good thing.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that, Malcolm. So that kind of wraps up our formalized questions for the panel. I kind of want to open the floor to the audience if there's any questions, and then I can have Suzanne talk about the in-course admissions process. So are there any questions from the audience? Give you guys a couple seconds to collect your thoughts. You know, with a lot of information. Okay, no questions. So we'll move on. So Suzanne, I'm going to pass the floor over to you. Oh, sorry, Radesh, go ahead.
I had just the one question. I'm actually going to. I think I need to take the co-op 1100 like next semester, and I had a lot of good insights from like what everybody had to say, and I really appreciate it. I also just wanted to know, how do I get like in touch with my co-op advisor?
So are you in a co-op program already, Radesh?
I am, yeah.
Yes. And what was your program again? Remind me.
MEF.
MEF. Okay, so I can tell you your co-op coordinator is Ian Wallace. I can share his contact details with you in the chat. I can share that with you, so you can email him and reach out to him. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Well, post that in the chat right now. Thanks so much.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. So Suzanne, if you want to go ahead and chat about co-op in-course admissions, what does that process look like?
Sure, thank you. And thanks to the panel. It was very nice to hear comments about Co-op 1100 from you guys. It just, you know, it validates what my teaching partner Heather and I, you know, are trying to do with the course. And it's just so exciting to hear you use that as you go forward. So that's wonderful. So part of my role is also to help with in-course admissions for co-op. And what that means is the opportunity for students in first year who maybe didn't apply to co-op from high school, or perhaps were not accepted into co-op from high school, to have the opportunity to apply again in first year. And so there are different deadlines to apply to co-op depending on what your program is. So I'm actually going to pop in the chat now the website link that tells you which programs accept applications at which time. So there's a smaller group of programs that are actually accepting co-op applications right now and up until the last class day of this semester, December 3rd. And then there's a much larger group of programs that accept applications to co-op in the following term, in the winter term, until the last class day of that term. So there's definitely a process to follow. You can find it through our website. If you go to that link, it's actually part of that link as well. Basically, it's an admission form or request form. And then there's a form, it's called an academic and work sequence agreement form. Not that you have to remember all that, but it is a way for our office to make sure that you understand the sequence of academic and work terms that you will follow for your program. And so that's the other form that's part of the process. And you will have a program counselor associated with your program who can help you through filling out that form if there's confusion, if you're not sure. Your program counselor can help you fill out that form. So part of my role is just to help students with the application process, receive their forms, reach out to them if there are any omissions or anything that they need to change, and just sort of help them through the process. So I would encourage anyone who's thinking about going into co-op to check out the link that I've put in the chat with respect to checking out, when is your program accepting applications to co-op. The other thing I'll mention is that it is a competitive process. So we look at student academic averages and the number of available spaces in that co-op program. So each program will have a certain number of spaces available, and it varies by program. But those are the criteria that we look at when we are reviewing the applications. And if any of the panelists or my colleagues feel like they would like to contribute something to that conversation, please do so. Or if you'd like me to address anything else, I can.
Well, thank you so much for that, Suzanne. Very informative and very insightful. And I guess just to speaking to the audience in general, if you don't get into co-op, it is not the end of the world. There are many other experiential learning opportunities through the EL Hub that we can support you with. So apply, try your best, get in. If you get in, congrats. If not, don't be devastated. There are many other experiential learning opportunities we offer here in the EL Hub, okay? So last but not least, I want to introduce my colleague, Ohiolei Medrota. She's going to speak about what her role is, and she is the EDI Employer Engagement Specialist. So she'll share a little bit of details about what that means and how it can support you students.
Hi, everyone. So my role is the EDI Employer Engagement role, as Claudia said. And what it is it's the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion role. So what I am doing currently is I work with all students that identify under that umbrella who need help on resumes, cover letters, interview skills, anything like that. I'm here for you. I'm here for them. Just to make sure that you guys are comfortable going forward. On top of that, I also will be engaging with employers and making sure that our employers are following their EDI statement or have an EDI statement, or if they need any help with equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I'm doing a full-on supportive role to the students and the employers to make sure that everyone's happy, that everyone's comfortable. And if you need any help with anything going forward, you can always email me or get a referral from anyone, and I'm here for that. So that's pretty much my role. It's not as lengthy as what Suzanne was saying about the Co-op 1100, but I am here in a supportive role for anyone, and that includes alumni as well.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that, Ohiolei.
Thank you.
So I'm going to leave the floor open, I guess, one final time for the audience. If you have any questions that have just come to your mind now, I'll leave the floor open for a couple of minutes. But while we're just thinking about that, is there anything any of the panelists want to say before we sign off today? Feel free to raise your hand if you do. That way people are not speaking over each other. I'll give Josephine and Radesh some time to think of any questions if they have any. I guess not. Well, Suzanne is typing something in the chat. We'll wait for her message to come up. Of course, if you have any questions about in-course admissions, you can email the email address in the chat. That's cica@uoguelph.ca. But I can't thank you enough to all the panelists. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your stories. It's very, very valuable, and it'll definitely enrich the lives of many co-op students to come. So thank you so much for that. One final time, Josephine, Radesh, any questions? And if not, I guess we can all sign off. We'll give them a couple minutes. But we're at 6:20, so we're good for time. Anjali's typing, so we'll just wait for that to come up, and then we should be good. And Anjali has included her email address and her contact information in the chat as well. But I guess if there are no questions, I have no answers. So if anything, thank you all so much for attending tonight's session, for participating, asking your questions, engaging, and sharing your experiences. We truly appreciate it, and I really hope that we can make a difference for future co-op students. So thanks so much. We're going to sign off now. Take care, guys.